his career or hers? That was the choice that Stephen Marche and Sarah Fulford were faced with 10 years ago. So Marche was a tenure track professor in New York. Fulford, she'd just been offered her dream job back in Toronto. They chose to put her career first, a decision that shed new light on the gender roles within their marriage. So gender roles are explored further in Marche's new book. It's called a book, which includes footnotes from Fulford. Yep, it's called The Unmade Bed, and both Stephen and Sarah join us in the Your Morning studios this morning. Welcome to you both.
Morning.
This is a wonderful and refreshing take on what I think is going to be this generation's big decisions. I want to start at the beginning. Sarah, you are an editor by trade. So naturally, as a writer, hey, Sarah, can you take a look at my stuff?
Yep.
And the notes go in as an editor, as she does. And then you fast forward, you decided, hey, I'm actually just going to leave your notes in the book. Why this very personal decision, by the way?
Well, I think, the notes that Sarah usually puts in are like, you're wrong about this, like, you're being an idiot here. Have you ever used the English language? That kind of thing. But, these were different notes. These were just like, she would write and then she'd have to turn over the page to finish writing her note. And so they became really mini essays. And then I sort of felt like it would be ridiculous for me to try to incorporate a woman's voice into my own essay. But why not leave her voice there so that you could the reader could sort of decide on the tension between the two voices.
Did you have any qualms about that initially?
You know what, it was really fun. I mean, I had strong feelings. I didn't always agree with Steve. Also, he was describing something very intimate, very personal, and I was invested in how the story was being portrayed. So I weighed in. Also, he did all the heavy lifting, the reporting, the research, the studies. I just got to sort of mouth off in the margins.
Okay, well, one of the ideas that you explore in this book is called the hollow patriarchy. So, I want to know what that is, and for our viewers, what that means, and how one Mr. Donald Trump factors into this idea.
Well, I mean, to me, the hollow patriarchy is the core of the book because, I think when we talk about gender, we tend to talk about it from one side or the other, men or women. But what's really interesting is what's happening to both together. So women are rising in the middle class. They're more educated than men. They're increasingly the breadwinners in relationships. They are rising to power in the middle class through labor participation rates. I mean, and this trend's been ongoing for 110 years. They're also denied top roles and positions, like only 3% of Hollywood directors are women, equity partnerships in law firms, board memberships. I mean, in Canada, only 6% of board members are women, which is, pretty disgraceful. So two things are happening at the same time, which is that masculinity remains iconic of power, but men are actually like losing power in the center. And I can think of no better example of that than Donald Trump, losing the popular vote, but still being president. And having this very, he's not a return to anything. He's a very new kind of masculinity. Donald Trump, like a man who cannot tie his tie properly.
Yes.
A man who cannot shake hands properly. A man who cannot fulfill, whose wife is not in the White House. Like, who does not, this is not a traditional masculine figure. It's actually a very hollow, almost parodic version of masculinity.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I need to fast forward to something, an essay that includes perhaps the most disagreement in the footnotes as we're following along in the book. And this is called The Case for Living in Filth. And this is specifically dealing with household chores, the work around the house, the drudgery of that part of living together. So I want to talk about that you decided, Sarah, to never fight Steve on the front of household work. Tell us a little bit about that and why.
Well, I think there's a really traditional battle that happens in many houses, and we're talking about very conventional heterosexual marriages or partnerships. He's a slob, she's tidy, and there's you can fight about that for your entire lives. It's actually incredibly boring and annoying and tiresome. And in addition, like what I ended up thinking and feeling when I would again pick up the socks that were tossed to the outside of the laundry hamper rather than making it into the laundry hamper, if you look at the sort of aggregate of domestic labor, we actually do divide things in a very equal way. We just do different things. Steve helps our son with his homework more than I do. He does a lot of our financial planning. He shovels all that snow, which we have so much of in Canada. And you know what? I pick up more socks, and I'm okay with that. And also, that conversation's really boring. So if there's any way, life is very short, if there's any way you can sort of make peace with people's strengths and weaknesses and then move on, it's a great relief.
We don't have that much time left, but I want to leave the last word with you, Steve, in terms of what is the takeaway, not just for women. We understand that this revolution is happening, but what is your message maybe specifically for men with this book?
Well, men are not dealing with their own gender issues at all, and it's affecting their health, and it's affecting their well-being, and it's affecting their income. Like, I think men actually need to deal with their own, the crisis in masculinity, which, you know, the mortality rate for white middle-aged American males is roughly on par with the AIDS crisis in the 80s. I mean, they're just shooting themselves and drugging themselves and drinking themselves to death in a really, really catastrophic way. And I think one of the largest reasons is they're not dealing with this new economic reality, which is inevitable, which is the rise of women to equality in the middle class. And if they don't deal with it, they're really going to suffer. And they really are not dealing with it. They're not even thinking about it. And you know, before we can get anywhere, we need some kind of consciousness about it.
And maybe it starts, the journey starts with this book.
I would hope. That would be my great hope.
Yes, this has been so fascinating. Good to see you both again.
Thanks so
Great.
much.
Thank you, thank you. Again, the book is called The Unmade Bed, The Messy Truth About Men and Women in the 21st Century, a must-read for everyone in the household.